Warning. This episode contains adult language and adult humor.
Since when have trumpet players ever been considered adults?
If you are easily offended by these types of conversations, consider switching to the oboe. Welcome to the Trumpet Gurus Hang podcast. I'm your host, Jose Johnson. This is another special edition of The Hang where we'll be taking a look back at some more highlights from 2020. This episode is the brainchild of the unsung hero of The Hang, my producer, Mitch Bowers. Mitch has always loved the Robinson Remedies rapid-fire round responses to the questions, what advice would you give your younger self about music and about life? Even though Mitch is a drummer, he's always found the responses enlightening and entertaining. And so will you. So pour yourself a big glass, pull up a chair, and let the hang begin.
Welcome to this week's episode of The Drum Legends Chill. Jose, what's the deal here, bro? It's not a drum podcast? Oh, it's not my show at all. It's still the Trumpet podcast. Welcome to this episode of the Trumpet Gurus Hang. I am not your host, Jose Johnson. My name's Mitch Bowers. I'm on Jose's production team, but I will be your host for today's episode. Last week, we took a look at what the guests of 2020 had to say about what the most overrated and underrated aspects of trumpet playing were. This week, we're going to be looking at what advice they wish they could give their younger selves about music and about life. Now, I'm not personally a trumpet player. As the introduction said, I'm a drummer. But I get a whole lot out of watching this podcast and hearing these professional musicians kind of look back on their careers or look forward to the things that are still coming. And I find this question to be one of the most insightful portions of the podcast, basically every week. As an aspiring young musician, it's incredibly insightful to hear what these professionals wish they could tell their younger selves about the music industry. These little pieces of advice, these little nuggets of knowledge, they really, really go a long way when it comes to planning your career ahead of you, which is really what draws me to this question. What advice would you give your younger self, both about music and about life? So without further ado, here are our guests' answers to this question from the 2020 Trumpet Gurus Hang podcast.
What advice would you give your younger self about music?
I would say learn to play the piano so you understand the big picture of music instead of being a one note. But we play one note at a time. So we're going down one lane of the highway. If you can see the whole highway, you can react to a lot of different things differently. So I wish I would have done that when I was young.
Yeah. Okay, cool. What advice would you give your younger self about life?
I would have worked harder. I didn't work as hard as I should have when I was young. And I'm not just talking about trumpet. I'm talking about many things. I didn't study as hard as I should have in school. As I got older, you realize the catch up you have to do the things we need to do in life. And so it would definitely probably be more on the educational thing about focusing on really taking care of business. And I look at young people now that do that, like young high school players, and they're good students, and they go off to college, and they're good college students, and they practice I wish I would have taken that route. I almost wish I wouldn't have had the physical ability because it would have made me work harder.
What advice would you give your younger self about music?
Slow down. Easy.
From The Flash? The Flash is saying to slow down?
Yeah, I know, right? It's so do as I say, not as I do. No, when I was young, I played a lot. I played 12, 14, 15 hours a day in college. Literally. I had a key to the music building. I could get in at any time. I don't think that's probably allowed anymore, but this was a different time. But I never really practiced. And I'm a huge fan of slow fractional practice, what I call it. I can't play this caprice right now. Well, if I play it at 1/8 the tempo and sound really good, then it's just a matter of time before I shrink the distance between the phrase and it will speed up. But if I never sound good at the very beginning of my playing, guess what? You're now ingraining that to not sound good. So slow down. So need Samuel L. Jackson to say that.
Yeah, exactly. Good same thing. So we got the question about music, but if you could go back and talk to your younger self, what's the biggest piece of advice you'd give yourself about life?
Listen, I mean, it's again, like even now, it's like, what's when Stephen Covey's book, right? I mean, seek first to understand and then be understood. It's completely applicable, but we're trumpet players. It's a very egocentric instrument. We're driven. We are possessed about being at the top of the mountain. And in some ways, that's a really great thing. The Darwinism. Oh, see, I can't even say it. You probably could say it better than me. Darwinian. Yeah. I love that movie with, wasn't that the movie that David Bowie was in? Oh, wait, sorry. But that sort of nature of, of survival of the fittest. But the thing I like about moving here, I will tell you one thing. When I first moved here, I was at the grocery store and I was just getting a small thing, back in the days when toilet paper was plentiful on every shelf. Ooh. So, just think of those days. So, but I was at the register and the lady's ringing up my stub. Beep. That's a good thing. Where are you from? Beep. I had a Red Sox hat on, of course. So I said, "Oh, yeah. I live here now, but I'm from Boston." Beep. Oh, what brought you here? Beep. And I own my wife's job, and I own my own business. Not a big deal. Beep. So how do you like it here? And I'm like, and I said, "Listen, lady, I'm just here to buy my damn groceries. Stop." And then, now I get it. Like people want to be a part of your life, even if it's that one-time acquaintance that you meet. Slow down and listen to someone. Maybe you'll learn the best story you've ever learned or the best life lesson because you're willing to listen and not just like, "Hey, man, check this out. This is the shit."
Okay. Going back to your answer about your superpower, you do have the ability to go back in time now and give your younger self some advice about music. What do you think the advice you would want to give your younger self would be?
What to listen for. Specifically about music, that was one thing where when we listen to something and we know we like it, it's like, oh, that's cool, but we don't really know why. And not that we always need to dive into that. Sometimes and oftentimes maybe it's better that we don't. But to say when we're learning a craft, knowing what to listen for is really super important. So knowing that concept sooner would have been really, really helpful, I think.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. And what advice would you give your younger self about life?
It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Take a step forward. One step at a time. Tiny steps are okay, so long as you're taking a step forward.
Final question. What advice would you give the next generation of techs?
I always say this without sounding like a dick.
Well, there you go.
There's no shortage of people that want to learn and that think they want to learn, I guess, or that the first thing I wanted to say, which isn't completely true, but maybe I'll just say it for funny, but to sit down, shut up, and listen. Like keep your ears open and your mouth shut.
Yeah, there you go.
But I can't say that because you obviously should be asking questions. You have to be asking questions. You have to be extremely curious, and you have to be, just that mind, and usually talking to somebody, it's pretty quick. You realize quickly where people's mindsets are and who's going to be more adept for things. Like there's a girl, college student, who just this past Westchester Trumpet Festival, came up to the table with a stuck valve cap, and I fixed it. No problem, right? F11 mallet, right?
Yeah.
Right there. And she just had this look of amazement on her face. And I said, are you going to be, what are you looking to do? Are you a band director? Like, is that your music ed major? Because I was going to tell her, hey, you should buy one of these, you know?
Right.
And she says, I don't know. I have no idea what I want to do. I'm studying music ed. And we started having this conversation. And just right before everything kind of busted loose with the virus, she came by the shop and we hung out for a while. And just the way she spoke and asked questions, I mean, I could be wrong and maybe she goes a different direction, but you can just tell that she has that mind of asking the right questions, you know, to be curious enough, but to also listen to the answers and be genuinely interested in the answers. Instead of thinking maybe of being someone who's like, man, you know, I don't, it sounds weird to say, but overly concerned with the celebrity of this, you know, because you get to have a good reputation and you get, I guess, I are respected by enough players, people like that. And they are very anxious, you know, as I say, get their name on a bell. And they skip a lot of steps or rush through things and don't really take the time to really earn their stripes and kind of, I don't know, just slow down, not be in such a hurry, you know, learn things and just be a little more humble and a little bit more just open-minded with things, of just learning things instead of thinking about, well, what's my next thing that I can do to make some money? What's another product I can do? Or what can I do to get into the market? Instead of going, you know what, I'm just going to sit here and learn as much as I can and be interested in doing nothing with this right now and just try to absorb things until things kind of fall in place. And maybe that's a lazy business strategy, but as I'm sure a lot of people will tell you, that the best craftsmen tend to be not the best business people.
All right, you're able to go back in time and give your younger self one piece of advice about music. What would it be?
About music? Learn to play the fucking piano, like, for real. It's just you know, like, get it done early, figure it out, like, you know, because the rest, I mean, I feel like a younger version of me was always going to end up here anyway. It's just the big difference between where I'm at now and where I wish that I could have been, you know, where I would like to have been, would, you know, it would be that.
Yeah, I get you. I mean, I feel like I'm where I'm supposed to be right now based on all my experiences, but man, you know, there's some shortcuts, not some shortcuts, but there's a lot of obstacles I could have avoided along the way. So, what advice would you give your younger self about life?
Knowing now what I do and being able to look back retrospectively on my various loving relationships, I would say to my younger self, if you can really sense that something's not working, that's really that the partner that you're with is not who you really want to be with, but you're there out of some stoic, you know, need to just stay in it, you know, like whether it's for them or for, you know, just because you're in too deep, you know, in for a penny, in for a pound. Like there's I would tell my younger self, you know, although at this point I have no regrets and everything is a learning experience and all that, and I like where I'm at, but nonetheless, I feel like I pretty much learned those lessons several years before the termination of several relationships. You know, I think I would encourage my younger self to really follow my heart, not more so than a sense of responsibility to a beaten path that I'm, you know, just staying on. So I would just say, you know, if you're not feeling it, move on. You know, find where you really resonate, where you really feel comfortable.
If you were able to travel back in time to a younger Mike and give him one piece of advice about music, what would it be?
I think even though I've talked about it, it would probably be to spend more time practicing, because I would go through my practicing stuff and I'd learn my lesson stuff, and then I'd just start playing tunes, and which was great too. But I used to love, way before play along records. My joke is that by the time I was 12 or 13, I'd already played with Frank Sinatra, Ella Fitzgerald, Sarah Vaughan. I'd played with all of them because I played with their records,
Right.
and I learned. That's one of the great things that I did. I learned tunes. I knew a lot of tunes even when I was young, just from memory. I'd never seen them in a fate book or anything. So, well, maybe that's the wrong thing, because that part of my playing really sort of made who I am as far as being able to be a jazz player and know lots and lots of tunes. So maybe that was the wrong answer. I did practice. I did do what I was supposed to do, but then I always switched to the other stuff. Let me think if there's anything else I could tell myself as a young person. No, I don't think so. I was going to say learn from your elders, but I think I was very lucky in that I got to play with a lot of players who were a lot older than me, who were great players, and I had the sense to listen to what they were doing. Here's one thing that while not going back to retell myself, but one of the things that I discovered was that I enjoyed listening a lot more when I stopped comparing myself to who I was listening to.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. Trust me, I've compared myself to so many people, you included, and it's great to listen to other people, to get a feeling, and to have an aspiration. But it's like that famous saying, Clark Terry, imitate, assimilate, innovate. And I think so many of us we get stuck. We're listening to people, and it's hard for us to understand that there's a process that goes on, and we just feel like because we can't sound like a Mike Vax or a Maynard Ferguson or a Wayne Bergeron, that we're not worthy. But
I'll tell you a great one about that. I think my junior year in high school, our band director took us to hear a Mendez clinic, which was unbelievable. I still have a record he signed for me. And in the car going home, we had a station wagon, so there were a lot of us in. And in the station wagon going home after the clinic, a bunch of the guys were saying, "Oh, that makes me want to throw my horn away," or "That makes me want to put the horn in the case." And and I said, "That's ridiculous. It makes me want to practice more." And my teacher said that night he knew I was going to be a professional musician.
There you go. Exactly. That's it. It's you get inspired either positively, or you just get pissed off enough. Like, why can't I sound like that? And you buckle down. So that is awesome. Okay, so we know what you would tell yourself about music, but you can go back and tell yourself one thing about life. What's one big lesson that you wish that you might have learned a little earlier in life?
Oh, lessons I learned in life. Probably to not be quite as fixated on music and my business of music as I am, because I'm a fanatic. And so maybe the thing would be that even though we have a great relationship, that I should have spent a little more time with Peggy, my wife, and Leslie, my daughter, rather than being on the road as much as I was, or spending time in my office hours and hours and hours and hours working on booking and stuff like that. So that might be it, just that I should have spent a little more time with family.
Let's think about this. If you're able to go back in time, what advice would you give your younger self about music?
Oh, that's a good one there. To give my self advice about music. In general, or performance, whatever I come up with. Okay. The good trumpet player, the good musician, the good technician is going to be the smart trumpet player. Okay. Work smarter, you know. Don't just clock in. The more we work with young people, the young people that want to be more than just in the club of band, you know, that want to get good, is to practice smarter. Don't clock in. They sit down and they grab a book. I think I'll play in this today. I'm practicing. And they, well, am I not getting any better? Okay, so as far as trumpet, in my younger self, I would have said, you need to find a routine that works for you and stick to a routine. A lot of us have a warm up, and that's the only part of the routine that you have, you know. Or even if you do practice scales and arpeggios, have it planned out. How are you going to do it? How are you going to get to all of the keys? A routine is something that we take for granted. Oh, yeah. But a lot of people don't get it. A lot of people do not have a routine. It's got to be a lifelong thing, you know. And it changes. When you're in school, you'll have your routine. But if you don't know how to have a routine, when you graduate from the last degree that you were working on, you're out there, and a lot of them don't have a job playing or whatever, and they don't know how to sustain themselves. You've got to have a routine that fits what style you want to play, and you better be able to do a little of all of it, you know. We all know that now. But it's got to be more than just, I'm going to play, I think I'll play this today or play that. My routine lasts an hour and 15 minutes. And every day I play, except I've had to chop wood or something, you know, weather, you know, things happen. It's an hour and 15 minutes, and it's exactly the same thing every day, except it might be in a different key. And 12 days after I've gone through 12 keys, then I start over, but it's the same thing every day.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'd never heard anybody explain it that way. That's really cool.
And it's what's getting me through this thing, you know. All my gigs, I don't have any gigs either. But I tell you what, when I'm sitting here and, oh crap, you know, I know my routine. I can do that. And I'll sit down there and do it. You know, I did most of it today before I had to start teaching. Goes everything. And it starts with that G to C that Don Jacoby taught all of us in Denton, Texas, about the air. And that was 33 or 4 years ago.
Yeah, that's establishing that base. That's very cool. All right, so same thing. You get to go back and you get to talk to your younger self, but this time, what advice would you want to give yourself about life?
Life. I've done pretty well on some of my things, you know. I've made my mistakes, okay? But it's advice on life. Well, it's kind of like Mr. Rogers. Be nice. You know, the 3 things. Be nice, and be nice, okay? And I've done pretty well on that, and I've never really had many enemies. Not any really enemies as button heads, but I've had some people do me wrong. But not a lot. I just wanted to be everybody's drinking buddy, you know, back in, so to speak, you know, back in the day. And you know, now I want to be the guy, not win popularity contests. I've never done that, but be fun to hang with. Be nice. Don't be. We know what happens when we start talking about each other. It's going to come right back and to bite you in the ass 100% of the time. And least when you least expect it. If you think things are going great, and it'll come right back about something you said, you know, that's a big deal. And I got buddies in New York, you know. Oh yeah, he got a rep. He's not in New York anymore. He had to leave because talking about people, you know. Yeah, just be nice. Don't suck up. Don't want to be liked, but just be nice. Throw a smile out, and a smile might come back to you, you know.
Okay, so you're able to go back in time and give your younger self one piece of advice about music. What would it be?
Yeah, just get your ass in the practice room. You don't have to go in the practice room. You can get in your car. You can sit in your car. You can find a spot in the garage. You can go to a park in the middle of a park. You know, you can't tell yourself, oh, I can't, I've got no place to practice. There's a place to practice. And if the neighbors complain, you know what? Fuck them.
There you go.
Yeah, anytime, anytime, this is not the alcohol talking. I've said this many times. Anytime you make music, you make the world a better place. So if someone complains about you practicing, fuck them.
That's you know, the hardest part for me was always getting past the fear of making mistakes and having people hear me make mistakes. So yeah, I think for a lot of people that's saying that you don't have a space to practice is the excuse that you give. The real reason is you don't want to sound like a jabroni sitting there slaughtering Arbans or something like that.
That's exactly what I sound like. That's the sound that's in my head.
Yeah.
No. You know, it's really funny. I've been inspired. I'm going to tell you a little bit about, you know, our good friend, you know Josh Landers, don't you?
Oh, yeah.
I love Josh. Josh inspired me. I saw him on the news. He's out there playing taps every night. I'm not talking on a little Facebook. I saw him on Facebook Live, but when I started seeing him on the news, I'm like, holy shit, people are paying attention. And he was doing this night after night. I'm like, okay, I'll start doing that too. And the first couple of nights, I'm just like hiding in my backyard. I got a big backyard. I'm under all these trees, you know, and it's like playing. And I heard I heard my wife is going, woo, from, you know, I'm like, oh, it's not supposed to clap. But I heard my neighbors clapping appreciatively. And I wasn't doing it for them. I was doing it for people who couldn't clap. But I am shy on stage. I'm happy when I'm in the back row, and I'll play and I'll take chances all day, and I'll play. And if I play something that comes out great, you'll know it when you see my body language. I start doing this stuff, you know, and I start going, you know, and you'll see me when I'm in the back row because I like to hide back there, and I play something that's not so good. You'll see me going, wasn't meant to be, you know. But I'm shy. I'm a shy player. Trumpet players aren't supposed to be shy. Ours is not a shy instrument, but I'm happier way in the back. What was the question?
The question was, what advice would you give yourself about younger self about music? Which you said, practice
yeah, don't be
more.
so shy.
Yeah, don't be so shy. Have a couple drinks. Have a couple drinks before
play,
you.
Man. Maynard said, actually, his quote was, "Just fucking play, man."
Yeah,
and he was right. He was right.
Yeah, he was. What advice would you give your younger self about life?
Oh, don't be so selfish. Right? I spent a lot of years thinking about me, and yeah, I found a good woman with 3 kids, and all of a sudden I was thinking about others, and it just changed my life, made everything better, made everything click when I started thinking about others. It's crazy. Don't get me started. I have to get up the Kleenex, and it's across the room. So I would tell myself, don't think so much about yourself. Think about others.
If you're able to go back in time and give yourself, your younger self, advice about music, what would it be?
Don't play music for a living. That's real, but.
And what advice would you give yourself about life?
Learn how to be a doctor or a lawyer.
I'm not sure I'd want you being my doctor, Rob, especially if you need a drink. If you need a drink before you do your job, man, I don't want you.
That'd be scary. Yeah, you wouldn't want that.
Yeah, well, no,
No,
man.
if I had to go back and tell myself something about music, I'd probably tell myself to learn how to play more instruments other than trumpet and not focus so much on trumpet. It's just such a hard instrument. I don't know a lot of trumpet players who play other instruments because it's such a hard instrument to start making music with it. Before you can even make any music, it takes years to learn how to play it right, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I've got a friend who, really great trumpet player, but, he also plays guitar and bass, and he works much more as a bass player than he does as a trumpet player.
I bet.
So,
yeah. I think if every band has a bass in it, not many bands have trumpet in it.
Yeah, for myself, I mean, the one thing I wish I'd done is really been serious about taking piano. I kind of putzed around at it a little bit and just enough to get through my first quarter of piano in college. But
Me too. And they were just like, that is terrible. My piano teacher was just like, oh man, I don't even know what to do. You are awful at piano.
But yeah, it would be something, for me, that would be something that I really would want to do. Like you said, one, it opens up a world of opportunities for you, but, I think also learning to approach things from like a harmonic position. And like a lot of trumpet players who are good keyboard players or, whatever, guitar, whatever, a harmonic instrument, they have a really unique approach to, I think, playing the horn. The same thing with those who started out as drummers. They have like a real interesting rhythmic approach. So
right. Yeah. I never really thought about that before, but that makes sense. Yeah. The really great players who are kind of out of the box are really good piano, like Arturo. Yeah. I mean, he's playing drums and keys, and it's just like, oof, some of the stuff he plays, I'm just like, how do you even think of that?
Yeah. Well, I know that a lot of people talk about, it's coming from inside of you, the music comes from inside of you. But so it's like, what you hear, it's like, what's the music in your head, and that's what's going to come out of your instrument. And I think sometimes having those different ways of expressing yourself, whether it be harmonically or rhythmically, that's just going to amplify your ability to play the horn. It's going to give you a deeper vocabulary. So.
Definitely, yeah.
So you can go back in time.
Yeah.
And correct that last statement. Now you can go back in time and give yourself one piece of advice about music.
God. Okay. Yeah. Well, I would do this. I would say, for me personally, I would say stop looking at music and start listening. Like, don't read so much. Do more here. I grew up doing shows and on big bands and all. Everything was, I'm reading everything. I tried to become a master reader and all of that. And I didn't spend as much time as I would have liked just transcribing. I mean, if I could do it all again, I'd be a bebop trumpet player. That's what I love. I mean, I listen to that. That's, what I hear in my head. But I never spent the time just doing I did some, but nowhere near what I should have done looking back now. Because I was trying to be a lead trumpet player. I was trying to work, commercially, do all of the things that I needed to have those skills. And I regret that. I would love to, just like my friend Rashawn Ross, man, that guy, if you could hear him play bebop, like he sounds like Clifford Brown. It's ridiculous. And he can just, like, he'll go home and transcribe whatever. He'll transcribe a piano solo. His ears are just ridiculous. And, that's what I wish I had done more of. I wish I had spent more time doing that. If I could go back, I would tell myself, okay, yeah, you can do all that. Now just work on this,
Yeah. Okay, cool. And same kind of scenario, you're able to time travel. You're going to go back and talk to your younger self. What advice would you give yourself about life?
I think I would say, don't be, as a young person, don't be, oh boy, that's tough. Because I don't want to sound weird, but my mom died when I was young. I learned a lot about
appreciating every day and don't take people in your life for granted. Those are the normal things. But I was fortunate enough, by an unfortunate circumstance, I was fortunate enough to learn that early on. I think I might say it's okay to enjoy life a little more. You know, it doesn't always have to be, you know, stress and you got to do something every minute. It's okay to sit back, take a day and enjoy yourself. You know, I've learned that as I've gotten older, but as a young man, I didn't do that. I was constantly working, and I'd work 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, you know, because I wanted to accomplish something. And in doing that, I might have missed a little bit of some of the more relaxing things that are important. It's balance, you know. I should have listened to Perello a little more. I have it now. I do it now. I'm very balanced now, but it took me until I was in my probably, you know, until I was 40 before I figured all that out, you know.
You could go back in time, visit yourself an earlier state, and give yourself one piece of advice about music. What would it be?
Practice piano.
All right. Same thing. You're going to go back. You can give yourself one piece of advice, but this is time. It's just about life in general.
I'm pretty good on that one. I don't know. I'm a blank on that one.
Well, that's okay, man, because you know, you've lived a full life. You've made a lot of tremendous contributions. You've influenced the lives of a lot of people, and I'm just, you know, even speaking for myself. I've had 3 big influences on the trumpet. The first one was Herb Alpert. Yeah, because it was just cool, you know.
Herb's not a great trumpet player, but you hear one note of Herb Alpert, you know who it is.
Yeah, it was the Tijuana Brass. So they had the Tijuana Brass play along book. It was all very cool. Second one, like many trumpet players, Maynard Ferguson. But the third and probably the most impactful in terms of how I've approached music and how I look at music has been you. So I really appreciate this time. And, you know, again, you've made a huge impact on so many lives. Music is such a wonderful tool. And times like this when things are just a little bit crazy, I think we can all come together under music, and you know, there's a lot of healing to be done in that. You have the ability to go back in time, and you're going to meet your younger self. What one piece of advice would you give your younger self about music?
About music, I don't know, but I would definitely have told myself to invest in eBay. About music, practice more. Practice the right stuff more. Don't just play the easy part with the high notes over and over and over. Yeah. Practice the right stuff more. Take a second lesson with that guy who scared you off of the first lesson. Stuff like that. Yeah.
All right. What piece of advice would you give your younger self about life besides buy eBay?
It would definitely be to invest in eBay. I don't know. You know, if I have to be honest, I don't know what other career I could have found that I could have been this independent. You know, I'm very happy in how things worked out. So, you know, if it wasn't just investing wisely or some other shit like that, I don't know what it would be. You know, don't turn the wrong way on that street or you're going to get arrested. Like, yeah. You know, stuff like that, you know, stupid shit that I did growing up. I'm sure I would have prevented myself from, but like actual, like grand scheme things, you know, other than smart investments, I'm happy with this career. You know, I think at some point in time I wanted to be a trumpet player, but I don't think even that would have afforded me this independence.
Well, it's all good. All right, final question. What's the legacy that you want to leave?
You're tough, man. The legacy I want to leave, man, I don't know. I want to do honest work. I want to put out honest products, and you know, I wouldn't want anybody to have any idea different. You know, so I would assume my legacy. I would want something along those lines, that, you know, did good business, was honest, had a lot of integrity, and made good products. Like, it's, you know, I wouldn't want anybody to think my end goal was to try to get rich doing this, because anybody trying to get rich doing this out of their fucking mind. But still, I mean, like, the point is always the things that I was talking about, is finding the best fit, and, you know, making sure people are happy with what they get, and that it's what they were looking for. You know, if anything, you know, something along those lines, that, you know, I didn't bullshit people and I made good stuff.
So speaking of your time travel skills,
there we go.
There you go. Here's the next one. You can go back in time to your younger self, and you could give yourself one piece of advice about music. What would it be?
I guess practice harder during my college years, I think. And also, I like kind of some of the anecdotes about Winton talking about play to move people, not to impress people. I guess that's kind of, but then of course there's plenty of ways along the way where you can kind of come back to that way of thinking. But I like that idea of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that too. Same thing, you're going to travel back in time. This time you're going to give yourself advice, one piece of advice about life.
Just live it. Just kind of enjoy the moment more, I think, rather than worrying about the past or the future. I can be a bit of a worrier. So just enjoy living in the moment, and take it as it is.
Okay. And, you know, you're a young guy, you're representing a new generation of trumpet players. What do you want your legacy to be?
That people had good fun working alongside me, and that hopefully they saw me as a fan of music, hopefully trying to kind of play music on the trumpet rather than the trumpet for trumpet's sake, I guess. And certainly the more I do it, the more I really love the writing side of things. So maybe it feels like that can be a bit more of a ordered, creative process sometimes than the trumpet, although it still is one of my favorite noises on earth.
You could go back in time and give your younger self one piece of advice about music. What would it be?
I would say, don't take it so seriously. That's what I'd say.
Okay. And while you're there, you're going to give yourself a piece of advice about life.
Oh, boy. Don't take it so seriously.
There you go.
Yeah.
And if we could go forward in time, you know, thinking about as you wind down your career and you're looking back on all that you've done, what do you want your legacy to be? What do you want your contribution to life to look like?
You know, that's a crazy question. Yeah, because we just lost Ryan Anthony, who was an incredible trumpet talent, but also just an incredibly courageous human being who was struggling with cancer. Trumpet, for those of you who don't know who Ryan Anthony is, struggling with cancer. And for 10 years, and turned this struggle into triumph by creating Cancer Blows, which is this organization that concerts and sponsoring concerts and just raising money for cancer awareness and just to fight cancer. And I look at something like that and I think of what an incredible achievement that was, where now that he's gone, that's here forever. And he turned that around. For me, when I look at, I mean, I'd love to turn things around somehow that way, to emulate that kind of effort. I try to do that a little bit in my cartoons. I try to lighten things up. I would like to do everything I want to do, but I do want to make a difference. And honestly, I haven't figured out what that is yet. I just know that I'm moving forward, and at some point I want to turn this around and make this something that will benefit everyone, that other trumpet players, other musicians, people that are at a disadvantage. It's you and I are in kind of the same situation where, I mean, you get to a certain age. I don't know how old you are, but you get to a certain age where you're like, well, what is this, my story going to be? What is it? And it changes. First, the story is, I want to get a job. I want to be the greatest trumpet player ever. And then it goes from that to, I want to be a great dad. I want to make sure that my kids, get to college and that I do everything for them. And then it goes from that to, what have I really done that it's going to change the lives of people? What is it going to make people look at things differently? And that's where I am right now, trying to figure out how I can be a citizen of this whole global community, and in my small part, change things for the better, and make people look at life differently, or trumpet playing differently, or whatever it is. So I got to say, I haven't really discovered that yet. I'm working on it.
You can go back in time and give your younger self one piece of advice about music. What would it be?
Those kind of questions are hard, because I like where I am now, and if I go back and try to help myself out, I'd probably screw it up, and like those time machine things.
Exactly.
So I would I would just leave myself alone. I'd let myself do what I was going to do. You make your own mistakes. You need to make them for yourself. So yeah, I'm good.
Okay. Same vein, you could go back and give yourself one piece of advice about life.
Yeah. No, same deal. I've been fortunate. I've had, I feel like I've been fortunate in my outlook and how I've been able to deal with things, and the support that I've had around me from my family and my friends. So I don't think there was some missing ingredient that would have somehow changed the outcome. I like to think that I'm sitting here in my present situation, and it's a good situation. And anything else is, this is what my life was going to be, no matter what. So I'm good with that. I don't need any extra advice.
Very good. All right, final question. What do you want your legacy to be?
I'd like my legacy to be, I think it's interesting to think about that, because I think maybe my legacy in a way is sort of out there a little bit, that I was able to look at something from a creative way, that was fun, and have a novel spin on something that was appreciated by people who do what I do. So, the big joy of doing a book where I've gotten that kind of feedback from my the domain of trumpet players and brass players is satisfying in and of itself at this point in my life. So anything beyond that is not really any a legacy. Something tends to be there after you've already gone, and I'm not going to really be worrying about that. But the current legacy of what I've done is the reason we're talking is because I wrote a book, and you dig it, I guess, and I run into these people that with social media, which is so great, is that you've got, suddenly people can just kind of find you. I spent time last week working with a guy who's in Poland, who's a principal trumpet player in one of their philharmonics. I don't even know what city. And he just contacted me out of the blue, and he said, I'm having these problems. And I said, well, try this and this and this and this. And we kind of went back and forth, and it wasn't a lesson. I didn't charge him anything, and he sent me some, videos of him doing the stuff. And he said, this is really helping me, And so, and that was really cool. So the idea, I think of like someone like Vince DiMartino and his legacy is that, people came in contact with him and they were inspired and they got better. And he was a cool dude to be around. I'd like to be sort of like thought of that way, but if, you won't be thought of much longer after you're gone. So I'll have a book at least around in the rubble of the aftermath. Right.
Yeah. They'll make a movie out of it with Denzel Washington.
Of course, right? I mean, people will often mistake us.
Yeah. The Book of Belck.
Yeah, I know, man. No, it's fun, it's writing and being creative is you got to stick around and try to get good at it, or at least good enough that you can appreciate having fun doing it. That's a lot of people who just quit doing things before they ever get good.
You have the ability to go back in time and give yourself, your younger self, one piece of advice about music. What would it be?
Start earlier on your own creative endeavors.
Yeah. Same thing. You're back there in time, and you're going to give yourself advice, but this time it's just about life in general. What would it be?
It would be about investing and saving money. How to save better.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What do you want your legacy to be?
Nice person. A good person.
Richard, you could go back in time to visit your younger self and give yourself one piece of advice. What would it be?
It would be not to take myself so seriously, and that it's going to be okay. Everything's going to be okay.
Yeah. Kenny, how about you?
For me, if I could go back in time, I would teach myself the same thing, just not to be so serious, and just go with it. Just go with the flow. Everything's going to be okay. I totally agree with that.
Okay. And again, this one for both each of you, I ask you the same thing. Start with Richard. Richard, what do you want your legacy to be?
I want it to be that I was a person who made the world around me better. That my little piece of earth was better for me having been there.
Okay. Kenny, how about you?
I want people to remember me after I'm gone as a person that cares about people.
And give your younger self one piece of advice about music. What would it be?
Remember why you're there.
All right, same thing. You're back there talking to your younger self. What advice would you give yourself about life?
Ooh, same. Remember why you're there.
Remember why you're there. Okay. What do you want your legacy to be?
That, if I'm dead and they're lying, I want people to feel like, maybe they were better off for knowing me than not. I like to feel like I'm better off for knowing people than not knowing them. So maybe that their life is maybe a little bit better because they knew me.
All right, you're going to be able to go back in time and give your younger self one piece of advice about music. What would that advice be?
Well, basically, it's about music and it's about life, and it's something that I struggled with as a young man. And it's a little blue, so you might have to bleep it out. Don't be a dick. That's it. If I could only say one thing to my 20-year-old or 17-year-old self, that's what it would be, because I struggled with that and still do, really. I fail on a daily basis, but I struggled with that for a good 20 years coming out of high school. Just a lack of direction and self-worth and that whole 9 yards. So yeah, don't be a dick.
Okay. Well, this show is not rated, so you can say whatever you want.
All right.
And the final question I want to ask you is, what do you want your legacy to be?
My recordings, my discography. I want my son and my grandkids and their kids after them to be able to shoot a Google on my name and go over to AllMusic and pick out a song and listen to their dad or their grandfather or their great grandfather play. It's always been really important to me. I think every time I go in the studio, I am creating part of my legacy. And I'm hoping, just like I listened to, all the way through my career, trumpet players and bands and horn sections, I'm hoping that one day somebody can be influenced in a positive way by some of the stuff that we've laid down.
You have the ability to go back in time and give your younger self one piece of advice about music. What would it be?
Keep it fresh. Really, keep it fresh.
Okay. And while you're back there, you're going to give yourself one piece of advice about life.
Go to medical school, I think might be the first one.
And what do you want your legacy to be?
Just to be known as a kind person, really. It's not I don't care about the trumpet or anything like that. It's just to be known as a kind person, somebody who was nice to people.
You can go back in time and give your younger self one piece of advice about music. What would it be?
More long tones.
Okay. And while you're back there, you give yourself one piece of advice about life.
I don't have to.
All right.
I've done it exactly the way I wanted to, and the one word that describes it is perseverance.
Keep on keeping on.
That's
all right. What do you want your legacy to be?
On a CD. Oh, a book maybe. A book would be good.
A book would be
pictures.
Good?
Yeah, with pictures.
Yeah.
My legacy, I would like that 99% of people that ever met me after I die would say, you know what? He was a really nice guy. And the other 1%, I'd like to tell them to go screw themselves. There's my legacy.
All right. Well, I will go screw myself.
I'm going to answer that more accurately. I've said it a long time ago. I said it to my dear friend Philip Biggs prior to him passing away. I said, Philip, because he asked me that, what's your goal in life? And I said, I want to be remembered in the same sentence as Vincent Bach, Reno Shilke, and Bob Giardinelli.
You're given the ability to go back in time to meet your younger self and give yourself one piece of advice about music. What would it be?
Listen more.
Okay. And while you're there, you can give yourself one piece of advice about life in general.
Listen more.
There you go. All right. And the final question. What do you want your legacy to be?
Making a difference in future generations in a positive way through the sound of music and the education of music, both.
You're given the ability to go back in time and give your younger self one piece of advice about music. What would it be?
Listen.
All right. And while you're there, you're going to give yourself one piece of advice about life.
Listen. Shut up and listen.
That's great advice. And here's the last one. What do you want your legacy to be?
I want it to be two things. The number one and foremost, I want people to remember me because of the kind of person I am. And number two, I would hope to influence people that I have come across and I have had interactions with in a positive way as much as I could.
Right. You can go back in time to give yourself one piece of advice about music. What would it be?
Don't see it as a competitive thing, entity. See it as an individual sport to be discovering the beauty of.
All right. What advice would you give yourself about life?
Boy, hindsight, right?
Yeah.
I would have to say, there's a famous verse in the Bible that basically says, and it's a life concept too, that says, "Be still and know that I am God." And that's a great quote, whether you believe in God or not. That's like, just relax. Everything's going to be okay. We forget that what we do has very little effect on what is. So we spend a lot of time kicking and fighting in life, and then it kind of still ends up the same way.
Yeah. 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 I hear
Be
you on
still
that.
and trust is what I would say to my younger self.
Okay. All right. And what do you want your legacy to be?
I want my legacy to be that, first and foremost, that I was a man of integrity who genuinely loved people, that was a complete gangster badass at music.
You can go back in time and give yourself one piece of advice about music. What would it be?
Listen more.
Okay.
Listen to more music.
All right. So you're also going to give yourself one piece of advice just about life in general.
Always try to be the best person that you can be, and be kind.
Okay.
And as far as the question before that was what?
What advice would you give yourself about music?
Oh, yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. And listen to more music. And also, if I can add an addendum to that, something I wish that people had hipped me to is study the business of music. I'm grateful that I studied the artistic side so much, but it kind of left me in the dust when I got into professional, because unlike some, I was never really groomed or trained to be aware of the business side of things and the money and blah blah blah. So I had a lot of catching up to do. So anyways, so next fast question.
That's cool, man. Because actually, I've always said that I think that artists and athletes, that should be part of their education. Actually, I think everybody should be taught how to manage money and business. We'd be in a lot better shape.
For sure.
All right. Here's your final question. What do you want your legacy to be?
That I was a good father and a kind person.
Okay. Well, that's a great legacy to have. All right. You're able to go back in time and give your younger self one piece of advice about music. What would it be?
I would think that learn more about melodies. Learn melodies better. As growing up, especially as a player, you're playing around the melody for the most part. I mean, of course, I did learn mainly all the main standards, but just from that aspect, it's back in the back row kind of part of the arrangement of stuff, and focusing on drums and bass and guitar and pitch and time and feel, as opposed to the words and stuff like that. So that's what I mean by that.
Okay, yeah, cool. All right, what advice would you give your younger self about life?
Have a lot of laughs. Have a lot of laughs, man.
Yeah. All right, and the final question, what do you want your legacy to be?
That I was compassionate and I cared about my fellow man and fellow humans and showed that to the best of my ability.
You are granted the ability to go back in time and give your younger self one piece of advice about music. What would it be?
Don't get trapped in the high note game.
Okay. And you're given just an extra couple seconds to give yourself advice about life.
About life. Have more self-confidence, but yet remain humble.
Okay. And the final question, what do you want your legacy to be?
I worked hard. I remained a nice person. Pretty much that.
All right. You can go back in time and give your younger self one piece of advice about music. What would it be?
Continue to listen to it, even if it doesn't sound like music. Continue to listen to it.
Okay. And while you're back there, you don't want to make too many trips, but while you're back there, you're going to give yourself one piece of advice about life.
Don't let fear stop you.
Awesome. All right, and we got one last question for you. What do you want your legacy to be?
It's already here. I just maybe if anything, the legacy is that we've continued to learn to communicate. We've been on the planet as a species for many thousands of years. The most difficult thing about being on the planet as a species is our ability or inability to communicate. So if I had a legacy to live, to give, it's continue to learn to communicate, which is my desire as well.
You're able to go back in time and give yourself one piece of advice about music. What would it be?
Play as many varieties as you can. Take advantage of all the opportunities you're given, especially while you're young.
Okay. And you're going to give yourself one piece of advice about life.
Trust and know that all is well, in spite of appearances.
That's good advice. What do you want your legacy to be?
He did it in spite of how he felt.
You're able to go back in time and give your younger self one piece of advice about music. What would it be?
Don't lose sight of who you are.
Okay. And while you're there, you're going to give yourself one piece of advice about life.
Don't compromise for anybody.
Okay. And finally, what do you want your legacy to be?
I want people to know that my main purpose in life was to bring joy to others. Whether it's through my music or through whatever other thing, through intellectual conversation, through jokes, shenanigans. I want people to be okay, no matter what.
Yeah.
And I try to do my best to do that for people. So I want people to know that at the end, that's all I ever wanted for anybody that came into my life, was for them to be a better person for having known me.
All right. You are given the ability to go back in time and give yourself one piece of advice about music. What would it be?
About music, I would say don't be afraid to ask for lessons.
Okay. All right. And while you're back there, you're going to give yourself one piece of advice about life. What would that be?
Something about life. You can do it. You can do anything. Just like them Adam Sandler movies. That one dude that screams, "You can do it!" Right. Just having more belief, because again, if you have the belief that you can do it, then you can do anything.
You could go back in time and give your younger self one piece of advice about music. What would it be?
You are the music.
You are the music. Okay. And you're going to give yourself one piece of advice about life while you're back there.
It's going to be okay.
Okay. And finally, Lexie, what do you want your legacy to be?
Pay it forward always, and the world will become a better place.
Hey, thank you so much for hanging with us today. This podcast is all about creating connection through our mutual love for the trumpet life. I hope that you learned a few things about today's guest and had some laughs along the way. Don't forget to give us a review. We love those 5-star ratings. And please share this podcast with your friends. We want to see our hang grow for show. Have a suggestion for a future topic or a guest? Hit me up at thetrumpetgurus@gmail.com. Our opening theme was written and performed by Lexie Signor, and all other music comes courtesy of The Greatest Funeral Ever. So in the words of W.C. Handy, life is like a trumpet. If you don't put anything into it, you don't get anything out. So go out there and let your trumpet sound. And I'll see you at the next hang.